Good morning, church. Good morning. Third week of Advent, the name of God, the name of Jesus that we'll be contemplating together is Wonderful Counselor. I'm excited to finish out next week with this big idea that he's the Messiah. But I got to tell you, as I worked on this sermon, I really feel eager to share this with you because I feel in myself this sort of excitement. And, sometimes you feel like your hearts are burning inside because you believe it so much. It resonates so much. And you feel your own evangelistic instinct sort of being activated. You want to share it with other people. So that's how I felt this week as I was focusing on this idea. What does it mean that Jesus is a wonderful counselor? Have you ever thought about that? That God is a counselor? I think of him as wielding more power than that. Is he sort of like an Instagram influencer? He sort of whispers suggestions to you, a little guidance. What we're going to learn today is that the word wonderful, it means divine in origin and extraordinary, as in supernatural, miraculous. So that's the word wonderful. And the counselor word, it means that he is attuned to you. He's specific and interactive. And he gets the job done like nobody else can. Counselors, especially these days, are aplenty, right? We sort of are living right now in an age of coaching and therapy and psychology. The coaching work that I'm involved in, the license I have there, it's one of the fastest growing industries in this kind of realm. It's been growing so much so that, you can sort of find a coach anywhere you look. But what makes Jesus, the Messiah, so different from all the best out there? What makes him entirely unique? We're going to learn that he has wonderful wisdom, wonderful empathy, and wonderful efficacy. Let's read this passage together. Isaiah 9:6. For to us a child is born. To us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders. And he will be called Wonderful Counselor. Isn't that amazing? A child is going to be our counselor. He has been given to us. Okay, so let's look at this word, wonderful. It's the Hebrew word pele, and it's a unique word. It's only used of God. So you've never met another human being or even a pet. I don't care how much you love your dog. They are not wonderful in the same sense, right? Because this is only used of God. It means categorically divine. There's nothing else like it. It's beyond nature. It's outside of the system. It's supernatural. And the effect is that it sort of draws awe out of us. That's why we translate it wonderful. It's awesome, full of awe, full of wonder, miraculous, causing us to marvel. Pele, wonderful. And so we get to wonderful wisdom. What does that mean? Colossians chapter 2, verse 2 says this. In order that they may know the mystery of God, namely Christ. So in order for us to know the mystery that is God, all the mystery that is God, we are given access to him through Christ. Because in him, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. We're going to end the sermon on this idea, but let me bring it up here. That reality itself, everything there is to know, the entire system of truth and knowledge, all the interconnectedness, all of the sciences, all the domains and disciplines out there, all of it is found in Jesus. It's kind of an amazing idea. The book of John says that he is Logos, the meaning, the truth, the blueprint of how everything works, why everything is the way it is. To look into Christ is to look into all truth, all wisdom, all knowledge. And he offers himself to us. This is wonderful wisdom. He is full of grace and truth, which means he is gentle and yet unwavering. He can't contradict or compromise or unknow what he knows. He is wisdom. And so when he meets us, he knows exactly how to meet us where we're at without compromising himself. He doesn't lose any knowledge, any awareness about you. He doesn't play any games with us. And yet he's so kind. And this is the idea of how holy he is, how distinguished and self-differentiated, self-defining and connected he is to us. For us, what this means is that he is fully accepting of us without having to agree with us. In the book of Hebrews, it says, boldly approach the throne of grace. And there you will receive grace and mercy to help you in time of trouble. You know, when I was growing up in the faith, in the Christian religion, the sort of operational assumption I had with me was, in order to come to God, I have to sort of dust myself off first. You know, I grew up in the Presbyterian church. I wore a suit to church every Sunday. So did everyone else. There was a bell involved that marked the start and end of things. There were elders. There was order. It was really proper and prim and stoic and sort of high context culture, right? Not a lot was articulated explicitly. You just knew what the rules were. And the rules that I understood was you got to sort of be good enough by some arbitrary standard now it turns out to be in order to come to God's throne. Forget the throne of God, just to come to church. You had to sort of be a good person. You had to be a clean person. Here we see that this God who is all knowledge and wisdom says, I fully accept you with all of your dirt and delusions. Come on in. I'm not threatened by you. I don't care if you have a bad thought. I don't care if you have a dirty mouth. I don't care if you have weird thinking happening in your brain. I don't care if you have a past. I don't care if you believe in your future. I don't care about anything about you. Just come as you are, and I will give you grace and mercy to help you in time of trouble. You are in trouble. Come. You don't have to be less in trouble to receive help for the fact that you are in trouble. This is a powerful truth that all counselors with all wisdom have to practice. Acceptance, not conflated with agreement. Now, human nature, human beings, we're afraid to accept people because we think it means you agree. That if you let them in, it means you're condoning, that you are somehow undifferentiated from the person in front of you. This is the first truth of God as our wonderful counselor. He accepts us just as we are. We go to God not because we're good enough, but because we're not. Because we need help. Because we are desperate. Because we're unworthy to receive help anywhere else. That's what grace is. That's what mercy is. This is the very dynamic that defines, in fact, the relationship between the divine and the human. That's why this is so wonderful. Jesus, the great counselor, is in the situation, in the world with us, and yet not of the world, and yet not of us. Come. Approach him. Pray that prayer, not after your anger subsides, but in the midst of your anger, in the midst of your emotional deregulation. Find God somehow. This is the beauty of the book of Psalms. You're not just feeling your emotions as society tells us to do, but you are praying your emotions, Tim Keller reminds us. This is King David and other psalmists meeting God exactly where they're at from their place of authenticity in real time. Come to God. He is also a true giver. God has no needs. Therefore, he has no conflict of interest when he accepts us. He's not trying to be liked by us. Have you ever talked to someone and you want to be truly differentiated and helpful? You want your full wisdom to be available to this person, but you're compromised because you want them to like you? I experience that every day, interacting with you all. I do want to be liked by you. And sometimes I sell little bits of my soul. Yeah, sure. That's the human condition. That's society, right? He doesn't do that. Somehow he knows how to look at you right in the eye, accept you just as you are, and maintain his total, full wisdom. And another thing I might add is whenever I am in a counseling position with people, I'm so tempted to overfunction. I want it to be about me, and I want to do things for them. I want to be their hero. I want them to walk away and say, gosh darn it, I forgot all about my problems because he's so wonderful. And yet, with God, with all of that wisdom, with all of that truth, with all of that acceptance, he never decreases my sense of agency or responsibility. There's always abundant room for me, and yet he fills the room also. How does he do that? You never get up from your knees after time in prayer and say, well, that's great, now I can do nothing. God's going to do everything. He's going to be my unhealthy, dysfunctional overfunctioner, and he enables my bad behavior and protects me from the consequences of my actions. No, he's wonderful. His wisdom is just perfect. And so we have this verse, 1 Corinthians chapter 1. But God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. It's so against human nature. It's so against human thinking. God's wisdom is so entirely unique that demons and angels long to look into this kind of wisdom. They cannot even comprehend it. They too, with us, are waiting for the full revelation. And so we have this graph. I'm sort of in a graph season. But as human wisdom, quote unquote, decreases, divine foolishness increases. So we have an inverse relationship. Where our wisdom ends, God's wisdom, finding space and openness through our weakness, comes in strong. We initially think it's foolishness. Why in the world would he sacrifice his own life to save the world? That makes no sense. Nobody predicted this. And yet here we are. Okay, second, wonderful empathy. Hebrews 4. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but we have one who has been tempted in every way, just as we are. I'm going to pause there for a second. Do you believe this? That he was really tempted just as we are? I mean, how many of you have been tempted before? Yeah. You want to share your temptations? No. Do you believe Jesus, the wonderful counselor, was tempted like you were? That's crazy. That's nonsense. And yet was without sin. It means that Jesus has earned trust. It means that Jesus has not come to judge the world, but to save it. John chapter 3 says this: God did not send his Son into the world to judge the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him. John chapter 12 repeats it. It says, I did not come to judge the world, but to save the world. Do you believe that? That God doesn't want to judge you. Jesus, his whole reason is not to judge us. I don't know why I think it is. I do. There's a part of me that can never let this go. I believe that every human being at some point is prone to judgment of me. If I do right, they judge me according to that partial act or whatever, and they give me credit for it. So I'm sort of like a stock. You know, I go up, I go down, I go up, I go down. Sometimes I trend upward, sometimes I tumble down. Isn't that sort of how the world works? I mean, how can we possibly defend against this assumption about God? Because he's wonderful in his wisdom. He's not here to be like other people. That's the point. He's not like you and me. He is wonderful. He's divine, categorically different. So much so that his wisdom looks like foolishness. He does not judge us. Human empathy, no matter how much they love you, no matter how much they might even be related to you, it eventually finds an ending. There's a terminus to it. Don't you know that's true? I have seen movies. I know that's true. I remember heartbreaking movies where loving parents have to shut the door on their addict children. I have seen movies where a character has reactive attachment disorder and they don't know how not to be violent against those that try to attach. And then parents have to shut the door. I've seen the greatest love stories fall apart because human empathy knows endings, whereas God's empathy knows no end. And so we have this chart where human empathy decreases, God's presence, God's engagement with us increases, where people are beginning to dissipate from our lives and disengage. God increases. In fact, the scriptures teach explicitly that he is with those who are broken, with those who are contrite, with those who are most desperate and needy and undeserving. To the thief, he turns and says, today you'll be with me in paradise. The most undeserving of criminals, the ones condemned to die. This is the heart of God. This is the way of God, for he did not come to judge the world, but to save it. Imagine you had a counselor that was like this. Wouldn't you go and tell them everything? Wouldn't you bare your soul naked before this person? This is our God. And then finally, we have wonderful efficacy. Hebrews chapter 10 says this: day after day, every priest stands and performs his religious duties. Again and again, he offers the same sacrifices, which can never take away sins. Now, I'm going to pause there for a second. Don't you find that you are your own priest? That day after day after day after day, you offer your sacrifices. How many of you came to church today in part because this is a sacrificial act which puts God in your debt in some way, so he has to be good to you? How many of you in part are enduring this droning by Peter because it's your sacrificial act? How many of you give money to church like Lindsay was asking because it's your sacrifice? Don't you feel if you've given, you deserve a little something, that you've made some kind of purchase? Don't you feel that? And don't you feel the opposite, that if you don't give, then maybe somebody's going to come get you? Of course. We keep tabs with each other, right? When you go out to dinner and your friend pays for the meal, you say, I'll get you next time. Why do we say that? Why do we get the next one? Because it's a scale. Right? Yes? I was praying during worship today that God would lift the spirit of stoicism off this church. Trust, folks, if you are more interactive and I understand that you understand, the sermon goes twice as fast. I will stop repeating myself. But listen, but when this priest, referring to Jesus, had offered for all time one sacrifice for sins, he sat down. I'm standing. I have a treadmill desk. I'm always walking because I have to keep making sacrifices. Day after day after day, balancing the scale, making sure it's tipped in my favor. This is what I do. This is what humans do. This is who we are. This is our modus operandi. And yet, Jesus, one sacrifice, and then sits down? What a total bad. It's just amazing. He gets the job done. I don't know how to get the job done. I'm in a lot of therapeutic relationships where I try to be helpful to people. And as helpful as I am, as soon as we hang up the call, as soon as we bid farewell, I understand they're alone. They're out of reach. And humanly speaking, I don't know how to be helpful to them. I know if I gave them money, it wouldn't be helpful. Not in the long run, at least. I know I can't go over to their house or wherever they are and help them. That's not sustainable. That's totally dysfunctional. Even as parents, we have to walk a fine line to know how to help children, don't we? We can't stunt their growth. Our job is to not be needed anymore. And so we tread lightly. We do the careful math. Oh, let me just whisper a suggestion instead of telling them what to do. How do we get in there and make sure they're actually helped, that they're actually saved? Who can do this work? Well, he can. In this one sacrifice, he's able to do something no human counselor can do. He has a reach beyond ours. There's an efficacious nature to this counselor's work. Joseph Conrad, the famous author, wrote a famous book called The Heart of Darkness. Made a movie a long time ago called Apocalypse Now. Anybody seen this movie? There's a line in the book where the character says, "We live as we dream alone." This is a sad truth of our existence, that no matter how connected we are, no matter how helpful we want to be to each other, all of us are just alone. After the therapy session ends, after friends say goodbye, your spouse falls asleep, your friends go somewhere else, it's just you. You're left all alone with your burdens, with your problems, with your feelings, with your life, with your reality, with your hope or lack thereof for the future. It's just you. That's human existence. It's tragic in a way, but we've come to accept it. But in quiet moments, it creeps up on us, and we realize we're just all alone. You turn to your spouse in bed, and you're staring at a stranger who cannot care as much as you need them to care, because they're just another human being looking for the same thing. How do beggars feed each other when they both don't have enough? Joseph Conrad was right. We live as we dream alone. There's even a sadder line in the book later on. Or it says, sailors sail together, but every sailor drowns alone. Have you ever drowned with somebody else? No, you're all isolated in your own terror. And that's life, right? I came home from college my freshman year. I walked into my house. The lights were off. It was dark. I turned the lights on, and I screamed because at the kitchen table was my mom sitting in the dark with her face buried in her hands, weeping silently. I walked over to her, put my arm around her, held her for a bit, and then asked her, Mom, what's going on? And she said, Peter, my mom died. And I said, I know, Mom, last year. And she said, Peter, you don't understand. There's nobody who sees me as a child anymore. I'm all alone. And I said, but you have Dad. Peter, you don't understand. I'm all alone. Nobody sees me like a child anymore. It's just me. What about me? I said, Peter, I'm all alone. You're off in Michigan. And even if you are here, I'm still all alone. It took me years to understand what the heck she was talking about. You know that feeling when it's just you? Nobody's looking out for you anymore. Nobody spends time thinking about you more than they're thinking about themselves. At best, we have our parents. And what happens when they die? We're all alone. Matthew chapter 11:28 says this, come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. We live as we dream. You know what the scriptures say? That God speaks to us in our dreams. That young men will dream dreams of God. We are not alone because He is our efficacious counselor who once and for all accomplished what none of us possibly could. Here's a quote from C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity. It's a little bit long, but I think some of you may have read this a long time ago. Some of you have never seen this. Some of you are familiar with this idea and the logic here, so let me read it for us. Creatures are not born with desires unless satisfaction for those desires exists. A baby feels hunger. Well, there is such a thing as food. A duckling wants to swim. Well, there is such a thing as water. Men feel sexual desire. Well, there's such a thing as sex. If I find in myself a desire which no experience in this world can satisfy, the most probable explanation is that I was made for another world. A man's physical hunger does not prove that man will get any bread. He may die of starvation on a raft in the Atlantic, but surely a man's hunger does prove that he comes of a race which repairs its body by eating and inhabits a world where eatable substances exist. Just ponder this logic for a second. If you feel alone, just the fact that you feel alone, what does that tell you? The fact that you are able to feel aloneness is proof, according to C.S. Lewis, that you were made for connection. You were made to never be alone. And the fact that you are with other people and yet feel alone is proof there's another connection beyond human connection that you were made for. Just as your hunger proves, the capacity for hunger, the experience of hunger itself proves you are made for bread. It does not prove you will get any. You may starve to death, C.S. Lewis reminds us, but you were made for it. It points to another world. In other places, and we're going to talk about this in our Christmas Eve service, so I don't want to give it all away. But why are you surprised by time if you were made for a material universe? You were made in time for time, unless surely you were made for eternity. I mean, just beautiful logic here. that reminds us that there is a God. Because you long for acceptance, He designed you for acceptance. You want the truth, you were made for truth. You want to stop making sacrifices day after day after day. He says, I know, I did it for you. It's done. And so we have this graph. As human ability decreases, divine efficacy increases. Do you believe this? This is the Christian message. That there is a God you are made for. Advent reminds us that He's coming, that we are waiting for this God. And even if you don't acknowledge that you're waiting, you feel the waiting. You're waiting. What are you waiting for? What is it pointing to? This is what Jesus has done. In His desire, in His role as our wonderful counselor, not only does He have wonderful wisdom, not only does He have wonderful empathy, He has wonderful efficacy. He climbed onto a cross and He died for our sin so that not only does He remain distant like a counselor, but He comes near to us, meeting us exactly where we're at. He does the one thing we could not do, the one sacrifice that gets the job done. This beautiful passage, in fact, this was where me and Susie's wedding verse came out from. Colossians chapter 1. Let me read this as our closing. The Son is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. He's our brother, friends. He's our sibling. And because He is, we will be also. Right? As the firstborn goes, so do the rest. For in Him all things were created. Things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities, all things have been created through Him and for Him. You may not believe this or really think about this, but you are made for Him. Just as your children are for you, we are for Him. We belong to Him. He desires us. He longs for us. We exist in the context of Him wanting us, of us being for Him. Right? And then Colossians 15 goes, and this was my wedding verse. He is before all things, and in Him all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything He might have the supremacy. This passage ties all of Advent together in a way. Reminds us that we started with Him. He's coming back to finish the job, to complete the task. And He did it for us. He's our brethren. For God was pleased to have all His fullness dwell in Him and through Him to reconcile to Himself all things, whether things on earth or things in heaven, by making peace through His blood shed on the cross. Will you receive Him today as your wonderful counselor? Amen. Would you bow your heads with me? God, so many powerful, undeniable truths in this concept of wonderful counselor. And if I think about it, I really do believe it. I can't find a way around it. And so, God, I submit myself to You, to these truths. And God, I pray for the congregation before me here, that they might know you as their wonderful counselor, one who is safe and holy, one who is all-powerful and efficacious, and one who did all of this for them. I pray this in Jesus' name.